And so when it comes to moving him, she used nothing but her body weight to move him from any place that she needs to move him. By the time they showed up in the lobby of the Free Foundation, she had endured 2 back surgeries because of lifting him. And so I want you to see it from another perspective, and this is the perspective that immediately I saw it from, because I looked at the father. So he watched his daughter lift him all those years. That's one thing, to be that kind of burden. Then he had knowledge that his daughter had to have back surgery. Why? Because she was lifting him. So just think about that burden, knowing that you have put that burden on your children. So she has the back surgery, and they go back home, and what? They have to go back to the same routine, am I right? So eventually she has to start lifting him again. And she lifts him again, and what happens? She ends up with a sucking back surgery. So now we've moved past the physical burden on her body and the physical burden on his body. We've far exceeded that. What we're looking at now is the stress on the relationship between the father and the daughter. I think by this time there was some deterioration there. And so when we were able to freely provide them with a piece of equipment, now the stress was off, not just lifting the father, but the stress was off of that relationship that was deteriorating. And I think that it became evident to both of them in the lobby. So I'm grateful that I've been able to connect with the foundation. I'm grateful for an opportunity to share with all of you what this foundation is. Please think of any ways that we can be a help to you, and any ways that you can be a help to us. Yes, ma'am. We're at 6301 Midlothian Turnpike. I'm actually in that Goodwill warehouse across from the Pep Boys, about a mile down from the Chippenham overpass. There's a Goodwill warehouse right there. And Goodwill, because of the partnership, they allow me to have some warehouse space there for free. I'm outgrowing it, so we're hoping for a warehouse of our own soon. Any other questions or comments?
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
I know in the application process, you have to fill out financial information. And I'm not thinking about the person who couldn't dip into a savings account to pay for a piece of equipment. But, it might put a bind on them to do it, but it certainly won't break them. But if an individual who has been provided a piece of mobility equipment needs something else more expensive 2 years down the road, do you look at the finances to determine whether you gift it to them or not, or do you have?
What we look at is the information that is provided for us on the application based out of good faith. And this is the 3 equations that I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask how many dependents that person have, what is their monthly income, and also what is their out-of-pocket medical expenses for a month. That is prescription, that is insurance, that is if they're paying on hospital bills, whatever is coming out of. So my ratio is looking at this: what you got coming in, what you have going out, and how many dependents. I didn't ask how much was in your savings account. I didn't ask how much your husband made. I asked for specifically the detail for that client. And so that's how that ratio. Also, we don't work along with Medicare and Medicaid. We don't. They're a separate entity. I'm not even concerned if you've been turned down or approved by Medicaid. Not even concerned with that. We're a nonprofit and we work independently on our own. Because I have helped plenty of clients that are just waiting. They've been approved, but they're just waiting. But while you're waiting, you still have the needs. While you're waiting, you still need the wheelchair. Does that answer your question?
Sure, I've got a question. Let's say John needs to get around like with a wheelchair. Excuse me. And he filled out the application, he's approved. Does the criteria change 2 years later when he needs an electric scooter?
No, it does not.
So
No, it
you
does
use the old form.
No, I won't. I will ask for another form just because of the way our grant writing is, and my grant writing wants to be informed of how many clients each month. So for that reason, I'm not gonna go back and get an old application. I'm simply gonna say, not that it has a bearing on it, you could have gotten 5 pieces of equipment from it. Very simply, I'm not hoarding anything in the warehouse. What I'm trying to do is get it out to the community. So if you got 3 pieces of equipment 3 years ago, and you come to me 2 years later and say, you know what, I need another scooter. Actually, Sherry, that one's not running good anymore. That doesn't have any bearing on me. What I'm gonna do, hey, give me another application. If I got a scooter that works for you, then I'm going to give it to you. So my mindset is to give this equipment to the community. I'm not trying to hold it or house it for any reason.
So if I get a concentrator, which we do, and the way I've done it in the past, because I didn't know about this, and I know that people need these things, and they're prescription items. And I just kind of tell people, I know where you can find one, you have to pick it up.
Now, a concentrator I would not have. A concentrator is not part of the inventory. For the most part,
You don't give out any prescription items, even though the doctor gives you a prescription for it?
we have an inventory of what we keep, and that's not part of our inventory. And what I keep in my inventory is primarily mobility equipment and bathroom aid equipment. So anything that's going to keep you mobile, anything that's going to help you with your mobility, that's predominantly what my inventory is. And
So you
anything
don't-
that's going to assist you in the bathroom. I get calls for hospital beds every other day. Would love to keep them. I just don't have the space. But what I kind of do on the side, somebody call for a hospital bed, somebody need a hospital bed, I kind of hook the people up together.
Well, prior to my transplant, I needed oxygen in the shower. I couldn't do it without oxygen. And I had to have the seat as well. But the seat was no good to me without oxygen.
Yeah, what the way the
The oxygen was
foundation.
no good without the seat.
I understand that, absolutely, and I agree with you. But the way the foundation works is that is not something that our foundation has decided that is a part of the free foundation inventory.
So you're only mobility.
Mobility and bathroom aid equipment. Well, primarily, for the most part.
Well, I call the bathroom aid equipment mobility as well, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just like getting in and out of bed, that's kind of mobility.
And we have like bed rails, we have like cushions for, the Roho cushions for certain wheelchairs and so forth. Like when somebody's Roho cushion messes up, when that no longer works, I mean, they just gotta have another cushion. You gotta
Right.
have it. Those things, some of them are $500 a piece. And so, we get calls all the time to have a cushion. My patient has gotta have a cushion. So those things we have, because when we get the wheelchairs, many times they come with it.
Sure, how about a one-day use or two-day use for wheelchairs?
I will, if I have an ample supply, I will. I have gotten calls several times. People have a loved one flying in for a service, a graduation, or something like that, and they're like, they didn't bring the wheelchair on, on the plane or so forth, or on the train. Is there any way I can get one just for about a week until, my mother and my grandmother goes back? I will, if I have an ample supply like that. I definitely will.
Great question. But not for 2 months.
For 2 months, no. For 2 months, I would take you all through the entire application process.
That's just terrific, John. Any other questions? Yes?
Are there comparable organizations to yours in other cities?
Not to my knowledge. We have some other locations. We have a brand new one that just opened up in Williamsburg that we're excited about. We have one in Roanoke, and we have one in the northern Shenandoah Valley. we have that one. But the Richmond and surrounding area is just the Free Foundation Richmond, the one on the local turnpike. I would love, 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 and I had some people that said they really want to support the effort of doing one in Charlottesville. I get a lot of demand from the Charlottesville area. But at the time, the board was working on opening up the Williamsburg chapter. So now that they've just opened up the Williamsburg chapter, that may be something I can bring back to the board.
We moved down here about a year or so ago from Northern Virginia, and I had a mother-in-law that was in a wheelchair, my second wife in a wheelchair, walkers, crutches, you know, and like you said before, like, I had to hang on to these crutches forever, you know. I don't know why, I didn't want to break anything more
Yeah.
to use them, but
Right.
for some reason you don't get rid of them. And canes and all those things, and donate them to, there's a place called ACTS up there, Action and Community Service or something, and a large part of it is a woman's shelter.
Okay.
But so much that stuff went to them, they would use it internally or resell it to their stores. But I can't think of how many shower seats
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
bought and got rid of,
Yeah.
and, you know, and other things. And we live in a community where there's quite a number of seniors that are out, you know, every day walking, whether it be good, bad, or otherwise, with their walker. And, you know, so I've got to mention that to people there that, well, you know, anyone that's got a new one that wants to get rid of one, especially the, what's called the mobilizer.
Yeah, the rollator, yeah, yeah.
So it's a good thing to know that there
It
is a
is.
source for some of these things, you know, rather than just, you know, disposing of them.
Yeah, I started speaking to a lot of the adult living facilities, and they were like, "Doc, where have you been?" Because so many times if their residents would just upgrade, just because they wanted to upgrade to a new scooter, and so they had like a warehouse of equipment in a room, not knowing what to do with it, because you don't know what to do with it. And so when they heard about the Free Foundation, we just kind of had a parade of power wheelchairs. We also connected with the Department of Corrections. If someone is incarcerated, and while they're incarcerated, it requires that they have a wheelchair, a walker, even a cane. They receive any of that equipment while they are incarcerated. When they leave, they open that door, and the states will take their equipment back. And so there was a lady that with the Department of Corrections, and she heard me speak somewhere, and she was like, "You have to be kidding." And so, but then there was the issue of who was going to pick it up, how we was going to get there. But unfortunately, there are some people that don't mind going the extra mile with their job, or either they'll tell the family member of the person that's being released about the Free Foundation. So I've also been able to help on that end as well. It's connecting people who are leaving incarceration who had a wheelchair, and otherwise they have nowhere to get in a wheelchair when they come home.
So then you contact all the Department of Corrections? Or-
Yes.
Well, each one's separate from the other.
Each one was separate, but
Right.
what I found out is the Goodwill has a re-entry program. Where
Right.
it is hooked up
Exactly.
with the Department of Corrections anyway. And so between the partnership of Goodwill and the re-entry program and what the Free Foundation did, the light bulb went off. It's like, hey, the three of us, we need to kind of hold hands in this process.
Because the Goodwill doesn't have any room for more than one or two at each store.
Well, because of the partnership they want. That's why. Now, if someone goes to the Goodwill and they want to purchase one, Goodwill would give them a Free Foundation card and say, well, we don't sell them in the Goodwill stores anymore, but you can get one from the Free Foundation
Oh, no.
because of the partnership. So we're thankful to Goodwill too.
And the Department of Corrections.
Yes.
Any other questions? Well, Gary, thank you so much for coming.